If you wait till you know everything, you won't do anything,
Right.
like your podcast talks about, right?
Exactly.
Just sometimes it's just start.
Yeah.
Um,
Starting's the biggest thing. People
and
want to know
so
everything, but you don't need to know everything.
no, and you can get lost in knowing everything.
Oh, yeah.
That's causes paralysis, right? Pick a lane and just do it and commit to it for a few months. And then if it's not your thing, do something else.
Welcome to Dream Start Own, the Path to Own Your Time podcast. I'm your host, Edgar the Connector, and today's guest is Tracy Gunn. Welcome.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you.
As we were talking, we haven't met in person, just a couple of Zooms we've been on commonly. So tell me your story. What are you doing these days? What is your main focus?
All right. Well, nice to meet you. Yeah, we were connected the other day. So let's see. I have owned candy stores for 18 years. I owned restaurants, I owned candy stores, and the short story is a bunch of years ago, my daughter had a grandbaby, my first one. I have two, and I just immediately thought, I don't want to run these businesses anymore. I had 42 staff. I was moving everything forward. Everything was growing a little bit at a time. But I was the engine that made everything go, the connector, kind of like how you refer to yourself, right? I was the one who pushed everything forward. And I know a lot of people, right? Like raise your hand if you can relate to that. Like you are the one who gets it done and make sure it gets done. And so all of a sudden I changed. Like I didn't want to do it anymore. And so I was going to sell. Like most owners think someday I'll sell. And I built with the intent to sell. And the broker said, don't bother. It's not worth anything. And so after I cried and I had a little moment, right? I figured out, well, okay, right? I'm going to see if I can fix it if he is right. And if he's wrong, well, then I'm going to keep going. And I gave myself a deadline of 6 months. And if at the end of 6 months I didn't have a buyer, then I would justifiably be able to liquidate. And so what worked for me was all of a sudden I started thinking about all the ways that I could get my life back, right? We call it getting exitable, but like all the ways that I could do less, be less involved, whether it's systems, whether it's people, whether it's technology, but all the things. I started implementing all those things and I found a buyer in 3 months. And so after that, I was like, oh my gosh, like why didn't I know this stuff, right? I made my life like a prison with all those businesses as opposed to freedom, which is what we're trying for, right? So, anywho, fast forward now, I have one candy store still, and mostly because I had someone who earned in and they changed their mind. And so now what I'm doing is like a case study, basically, that I've moved to a whole different city to be near my grandchildren. I'm going to open 10 candy stores in within the next year and a half. I've been here already half a year. 10 stores, 2 years, and be able to exit for 5x. And it's proving that anybody can change and start the path to the freedom that we're talking about, like no matter what. And we didn't know this about each other, but kind of we're on the same page here about like, so I'm doing it for myself for the exit plan and obviously the income, but I'm also doing it to prove to all the people that I work with who are beginning their exits, whether they're retiring or just want their life back, that it can be done. Even when you start from scratch, you can do it. So if I start from scratch and can do it in 2 years, you certainly can implement some things that are going to get you your time back, your life back, and also maybe get you the exit you want. So that's kind of my, sorry, very long intro story, but that's what I'm doing.
Oh no, we're here for it. We've had podcasts that last an hour and a half, so
Oh,
you're
good. All right. Cool,
uh,
cool.
we want people to know what's possible. You said you created your prison, and a lot of people get stuck in that. And then this one comment said to you that changed your mind shift to it to start becoming an owner and not an employee of a business that you put your name on.
Yeah. And I had built it with the intent of doing that. I was so blessed. I'm so grateful. Certain things in your life, you're like, that was meant to be because that shaped everything. One of the people that I met when I was first starting out, she gave me the book, The E-Myth, which I'm not sure if you've read it, but basically it's about setting up the business. A lot of people they start a business. Let's say they're great at making pies. That's the example in the book. And everyone tells Sally she should be a pie maker, right? And she opens a business and then now she's a business owner and a pie maker and she can't do both. It's too much, right? And then she winds up not being able to do the one thing she loved doing. And so the premise is that when you start a business, you have to decide, do I want to own a business and be a business owner, or do I want to be a technician and just do the thing, right? Because if you just want to do the thing, plumber, electrician, like if you just want to do that job and not have the ownership part, don't own a business. Don't start a business because you've really given yourself two really hard jobs. Running a business is one job, and you've now given yourself another job on top of the technical part, right? And so when I read that when I was first starting back in 2006, I was like, oh. So I never wanted my candy stores to be built on the fact that I was behind the counter every day. So if I left for 3 weeks or a month or whatever, it wouldn't matter. Like I set it up from the beginning, and I'm so grateful because think about how many people wind up, they are the face. And they, in some ways, have built the prison bar by bar because they are the one. People want to talk to you. They only want to come in when you're there. You do it a certain right. And I gratefully set it up kind of like that from the beginning. So I felt like at least when I went to sell that I was ahead because I had that in my mind. But the second part of that that I didn't really focus on was what makes a business valuable. What would make somebody want to buy, right? In real estate, that's easy when we think about a house with staging and all the aesthetics that are attractive to buyers. We automatically think about that, but somehow we don't always think about in our business because we're so busy doing it, right? That we don't always think about who might my buyer be someday and what would they like? What would they want my business to have, right? And the different buyers determine different outcomes and different focuses. So yeah, so that was kind of like the shift for me. And so yeah, I mean, so I'm building with intent to be able to exit to either like private equity or be gobbled up by another chain or and this also happens is that as you build up and you don't have the time crunch that you do when you're starting, that to some degree, it's even easier just to own, right? Why give up all that income for a one-time payout when you could keep going, right? It's like a fix and flip, right? You do the fix and flip, you sell it, you get the income. But what if you could do the fix and flip, get some money, and then keep owning it, right? And it doesn't impact you, right? And so that's kind of the idea. And I am not committing 100% to selling in 2 years because it just may be that easy for me, right? To just keep owning and keep expanding because at that point it's fun. It's not awful, right? And it's little things, right? I'm meeting with a lady. We're doing a 2-a-day event, in our group. We're encouraged to do some 2-a-day events. And mine is going to be on developing exit plans, which it doesn't sound very sexy, but if you did that and it guaranteed you a sale for 5x instead of 2x, that's pretty sexy right there. And so we're doing this thing. And so she came to me because she thought she wanted to sell. And so as we were talking about it, she kinda got to the place where she was like, "Oh, well, maybe I don't wanna sell. Maybe I just want higher management, like a C-suite fractional or something, so she could do the parts she actually likes and not all the crap she doesn't wanna do." And I think, we don't even know she's like, "I didn't even know that was an option." And I was like, "Well, of course I mean, it's your business. Whatever you wanna do. I mean, if you wanna sell, cool. Because she's in her early 70s, but there's some parts she just still really loves doing. And I don't know that she's ready to let it all go. But we're gonna do the 2-day event, and we're gonna figure it out together. There'll be 10 of them, 10 business owners in the room, all that are kinda thinking about exiting to kind of, like, also learn from each other about what their exits look like. What do they want after the exit? What kind of money do they want? What are they gonna do with their days? Because an entrepreneur usually within a year is back to doing another business.
They like that high of staying busy and being productive.
Well, because you think, "Ooh, I know what I could do," right? Or, "I could make this thing go," or, "I wanna see if I can." I mean, that's kind of like what I'm doing, right? It's like, what if I move across the country, I go where nobody knows me, I get rid of all the friction points that I can't stand, and I start over. I wonder if I can, right? It's like the challenge of that, the game. So, that's kinda I mean, and, that's the fun part, right? When they what was that show, Undercover Billionaire or whatever, where they just drop
Right.
them in the middle of nowhere? Can they make $1,000,000 in 30 days? Well, they know that. They have that muscle already built, right? It's just getting to the first 1,000,000 that's the hardest. Ones after that are easier.
Right. So you're actually of a step of being an owner, like the way Pace talks about in the Owners Club.
I
So
mean, in
were
some ways I am. In some ways I am. Some ways I'm back in the grind because 'cause I'm figuring out the new model, right? Just like Pace when he starts his new thing, he has to get into it and figure it out, and then he can hire, right? But yes, that's a goal, right? Is to just be I'm already seeing all the ways that I can outsource and make the job so little that it's fun.
That's great. Were you doing that before you were gonna sell, or when you went to go sell and that broker told you that, was that triggered your moment to make that change?
There were some parts. So I started my candy store in 2006. And it was at a time where so I was homeschooling before that. I stayed home for 14 years. And my now ex-husband, but my husband at the time had like it's a mental health crisis. He was in 9/11. So he had some PTSD and stuff. So we had moved to New Hampshire as a result, just to be away. And my kids went to school. Like my husband kind of fell apart and my life went kind of crazy. And so, I could have just kind of gone to meetings and cried about stuff, or my nature is to just go do something, go be productive, right? Make lemonade. So I started my candy store. It's called Life is Sweet because I thought if I kept saying it, that I would believe it again, right? Because my whole world turned, yeah. And so, so this store means a lot to me. But we divorced, I don't know, 6 years later, his choice, and it's fine. Everybody's good, everybody's healthy, everything's fine. But at that point, the store was really easy. I didn't have to be there. I had great staff. I had just systems in place. So I had freedom. I was going on vacations and I wasn't making millions because we were in a town that was kind of limited, but I had a lot of freedom. And so, an entrepreneur that has freedom starts to think about what else they can do. So one of the things is I had this opportunity to take over a restaurant that was fully outfitted. It was obviously a second generation space. So somebody else had left, somebody else's dreams or whatever, and it was all ready to go. And I wanted to expand things at the candy store. I was like, I'll set up, I can do it. I had waitress before and watched and learned about systems. And again, systems are fascinating because they give you freedom. Right? And they give you consistency that your building that your business can rely on and your customers can rely on. And so I was like, I could do this. And I thought, all right, let me do it. And so I did it. I just jumped and decided to have a restaurant. Never had started one. I mean, only worked in one. And the candy store was kind of doing its own thing. So because it was always doing its own thing, I had the freedom to go spend every day, all day at a restaurant, right? Now we check in here and there. And then a couple years later, while that was going pretty well, I was having difficulty with my landlord. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to go open a different one and I'll close this one. Famous last words. So I actually secured a 6,500 square foot restaurant, which was humongous. Somebody had walked away from it 2 years before, and I got that one open within 2 weeks because, again, I knew what to do, right? But then the people who loved the first one, it was an airport restaurant. So people with their private planes would fly in and have breakfast and stuff. And it was special from that perspective. And they were like, please don't close this. And so I was like, okay, I'll keep it. Now I didn't want to have two restaurants. And then I opened another candy store. So now I'm running all four. And so, what maybe was doable with one business. But then you add 2 and 3 and 4 on, and then grandbaby's born, all of a sudden you're like, "Okay, this is out of control," right? And so
Right.
they were all running. Like, I could go on vacation for a week or 2. I went on vacation quarterly because I didn't really take days off. But yeah, I mean, it was like by that time, it just kind of the snowball kept going. And so we have this superpower, which is can work for us or against us in that we can handle it. We can do it. Like, I'm already doing this. I've got time. I can figure it out. And so then you just build and build and build on. And then all of a sudden, 18 hours of your day are taken up just by making sure the systems are keeping going and stuff. But we never got to a place where we could hire a manager to run everything or each thing. I never thought about hiring one to run it all to help me. I never thought about that. But that's like a pace thing, right? The idea of thinking about things more creatively. I definitely was more in the mind of like, I need a manager for each place, which I mean, it would have been easier. I probably could have afforded it if I had thought about it that way, right? About one overall, even just to just maintain the systems, right? To be double checking. Because anytime you pay someone who's in that kind of role, they're going to do a better job than you just because that's their job.
Yeah, and that's what it focused on.
Yeah.
I get you though, but like right now, I've been thinking about hiring an assistant or a VA, and I didn't want to because I don't. It's like I don't know if I'm gonna keep them busy for 40 hours,
Mm.
or then I can afford them for 40 hours, and if I can't, then I speaking to other people like you can always get a fractional one, a part time one. I was like,
Yeah.
why did I forget about that?
I know, and I've had a few, and then, like, it didn't always work out, and some of it's just because I know more in my head, and you just have to go through the pain of teaching them, right, and finding the right one, recognizing if they're not right, just like staff, right? You always, because you go through the pain of hiring, you need a body, and so you put them in the position because 'cause you're just like, "I need somebody for this day, this shift, whatever," right? And they're even if they're not the best, you're just like, "I need a person because 'cause I'm not going to be waitressing, I'm not gonna be cooking, I'm not gonna be whatever." But then they're maybe not the right person. But the pain of going and having to hire again and go through all of that again and the wasted time and energy and that's a cycle,
Right.
and that's a hard one, even with a VA, because you know it's gonna require more and you know you need to, but the wrong one also will burn you out and you're like, "Never mind. I'll create an AI agent to help me." Like, right? All these things, like, I'll do something else. I'll figure out something. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I need one right now. I have way too much on my plate, because 'cause I'm running things in different states, and I keep having staff changes and then flying back and forth, and then the expansion plans that I have, and then the other businesses, and then the flipping we're doing with my husband, and all these things. I'm like, "I need help. I need help." I recognize that. Like, I don't know what the help should be. My husband would say, "Don't do so much," but that's not even on the board as an option.
Right.
'Cause I wanna do these things. That's why I'm doing them, right?
So I've been reading this book that they gave us, the Buy Back Your Time,
Mhm.
and the biggest thing is if you don't have an assistant, you are your assistant.
I am.
And
Agreed. I am. I
like
am.
trying to figure out how much you should pay him. He basically says calculate what you make an hour, and then 25% of that you should be able to afford
Yeah.
somebody. Because one of the biggest things he says in that book is, let's say, making a number up, you make $100 an hour. If you start doing a task that costs somebody $10 an hour, you're taking $90 an hour to you're costing yourself your business
Yep.
$90 an hour
True. I could go so much faster if
when you
I
can get
had.
somebody else
Yep.
$25 an hour.
Yep. That was the whole appeal of Owners Club and, is that they would help us find our Molly. That's kinda what we call it in our community,
Right.
right? Is that
Your money. Yeah.
we all need a Molly. We all need that person, and even if they're temporary, right? Not everybody's gonna stay forever, but somebody that is and I do like what they share about so I'm pretty high, you probably are as well. Like, I'm a very high visionary, but I'm also a very high integrator, and the only reason that I'm good I mean, I'm not naturally organized and I remember a lot, right? And I have done all of the jobs, so I know the most efficient way to do it. And I've been pretty clear about, creating systems and stuff, but it's not my happy place, right? But
Gotcha.
but
Yep.
the right Molly, for me, that is their happy place. And I haven't found that yet.
Have you
That's what I'm
interviewed
on the
any of the
hunt.
operators that we have
I
available?
have interviewed a few, but I'm not in it financially with the new store, old store, and I'll be honest, candy in January is a no. Most people are on a diet, so it's always our very low month, right? And November's a very low month. So, I'm actually presenting at Dealmaker in a week or so for funding, because that was the other part that I learned like, right, we're talking about getting your Molly
Right.
and being creative, but then this other part of that is getting help or finance or funding, and I mean, I've bootstrapped every business I've had, right, and just done it all and muscled through, but, that's what you know to do, right, and you feel like you have to do, but the reality is what if again, same supposition, like, what if I had somebody that I gave equity and they had funding to help me to get to where I wanna go quickly, and that part of that funding went to having an operator. And then all of a sudden, all of the things I know how to do really well, I could just focus on those instead of all the other things, right? And so that's kind of like I'm in this place where I'm like, "Okay, okay, I can do this." So, yeah, that's exactly right. Like, I'm at the start, but, like, figuring out because to hire wrong is painful. I mean, my highest point, I had 42 staff, and that was just pain. 42 staff will make you hate people. Like, if especially in the restaurant industry. Like, you just can get so negative on people and their quirks,
I used to
right?
work customer service, and at that time, after doing that for 4 years, I was like, "I hate people."
I know, it's terrible, and you really don't. It's just you're
Mm,
only dealing with the worst of people, right? Restaurant industry is notorious for just having people with problems, right? There's addictions, there's alcoholism. I mean, most people are not waitressing full-time or bartending full-time forever if they have any other skill set, right?
right,
It's usually a transitory position, right? College, high school, whatever. And the ones that are doing it, that are lifers usually have some quirks alongside them. And that's not judgmental, that's just reality.
right.
Occasionally, you'll get a really good one, but a lot of them just have that's just the industry. It's known for that. And so, having 42 staff like that is draining. I don't wanna have 42 again. So now I'm coming up with models that are, that don't require so my new locations, I'm gonna have 4 in Charlotte Metro, 1 in each county. That's like my standalone. I already have 1. And then but I also am gonna have 6 that are co-branded, meaning I just go in, I use somebody else's staff, and I'm like a value add. They get a rev share or we share staff or whatever they wanna do, and I've done that once here too. Thank you, Pace, for thinking creative. But the idea that I could have 6 stores and not have to staff them, monitor them, I don't have to show up when they don't show up, like somebody else's store. I'm just an add-on. I
Like,
will
some like a franchise.
kind of like that, right? But, like, I'm just, like, think about because I mean, you think candy, right? What if you could put, like, a little candy store in the corner of your store?
Mm,
I'm responsible for all cost of goods, kind of like ghost kitchens, right? During COVID, my restaurant, we had 8 ghost kitchens. So, I partnered with people who had their own brand online, but I supplied the staff and the food, right? That was what I did. And so people, DoorDash or whatever, come and get them. And so, because I already was paying for staff, this was just extra, right? Same thing, right? But kind of reverse is that I'm just the add on and people come in and they make their own candy bags and they pay at their register and they give me, my percentage. So really it works out to about 50, it's 50% profit just by doing that because 20% goes to the owner, 30% is cost of goods, and the rest is me. Like, and it could just be very simple. But I'm like, but you see how like I'm thinking about how can I make this as simple as possible? How can I get labor, all the pain points out of it? How can I, right? And automations work too, right? I'm the next one after this, I want to do like a machine. Like, I know candy. I've been doing it a long time. So it's an easy and it doesn't go bad. I did cupcakes. Cupcakes go bad after a day or two. That's a pain in the neck. The baker doesn't pay attention. They burn them. They don't put the salt in. They don't put the baking powder, like all those human things. But what if my setup had an automated machine that I could just put it in? Like, I have a claw machine in my candy store. You've probably seen those before, right?
mhm,
With the candy. Okay. Always fascinated how many people spend money on that, but okay. Right? But I have one in my store. Local fireman approached me and said, "Can I put this in your store? I'll give you 30%." I was like, "Sure." And so I get 30% from him for letting him have like a 2 by 2 foot section of my store. Right? Same thing. But what if I could do that from candy? See all the things we learned, right? And what if it was automated? They went up, they chose small, medium, large, a cup gets dispensed, and then they could fill it, and the end. They don't need to deal with anybody, they don't have to talk to anybody, and that we can even automate, like, inventory, right? This is low, whatever. Like, but I'm like, "Ooh, how can I have my freedom?" And that's all freedom driven. So I could do the things I really wanna do.
yeah, and then just have somebody part-time go fill it up, kinda like a vending machine. Cool.
Yep. That's exactly right, and they just do like, if I have 10 in Charlotte plus a distribution center to hold all the inventory, I'll have a person who runs the warehouse and goes and just fills and drops off, and their staff will maintain. That's it. That's kind of my we'll see. But, I mean, I'm like, "Oh, how can I have more freedom?" Once you start to see it, you're like, "Ooh, you know what I could do?" Yeah. But you have to start, right? I mean, that's kinda your podcast. You have to start. And you'll and you know what? Everybody starts differently, right? Something happens. Sometimes it's outside. Like I have a course that I've sold before that was like in case of emergency planning. Because I mean, how many business owners have an in case of emergency, do this. Like if you had a car accident and you went into a coma, let's just say nobody died, but you're in a coma. Would your staff get paid this week? Could anyone get into your computer? Do they know your code? Do they know who to call? Do they know where your bank is? Do they know what to order? Do you have people in your life who can do those things because
Right.
what if, right? And almost nobody has a plan.
No. So what made you come up with that? Something happened or you just
No, customers. So I do a class for sometimes for like the small business development and whatever for the state of Virginia. I've done it 3 or 4 times. And they kept wanting a succession planning course. And I kept explaining to them, okay, succession plan is one piece of your exit plan. In case of like there's really 3 plans every business should have. One of them is an in case of emergency plan. Like I'm out of commission if I'm the one who handles everything, right? I don't have a Molly. What happens if I'm out of the picture? And that's I went to Europe, I'm out of pocket, something bad happened, what do we do? Or, once I tried to move money to do payroll and I was in some other country and it wouldn't let me. So my staff couldn't get paid and but I was like, why can't I do this? I mean, but it was because I was in another country, it wouldn't allow it. And so, but I didn't know until right? And so, like, what do you do? So anyway, I was teaching this class, and the first thing that every business should have is an in case of emergency plan. It's kind of like you do for yourself. Like, let's say you have young children, you do a will or whatever, but you should have a list of where are your life insurance, if you have it. Where is it? Who's your lawyer? Where's your safety deposit box? What stocks do you own? Who has them? Because if you die and nobody knows, those are like gone. Nobody will find them. They can't get into your computer. How will they ever find them? But like when I first did my first will, it was probably 15 years ago where we weren't so in the cloud about everything, right? Everything was on your computer. So if they couldn't get into that, you were out of luck. So, number one, in case of emergency plan, right? That's the first plan everybody should have. Even in your life, you should have that, right? And just a place, and it should get updated. That's what usually happens. They do it once and then they forget to update it, like your will, right? And then the second one is an exit plan for yourself. And that really encompasses your life and what you want from your exit from your business. And that is like, I want to work 10 hours a week for the next 30 years and I want everything to run, but I want to focus on this, 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 and this. That's if you're not selling, right? So it's your plan and how are you going to get there? But then also is like when someday after that, I want to sell in 2046 and I want it to be worth 7 million, right? Well, how do you work it back? That's your exit plan, right? Knowing what you want and then when you want it and how are you going to get there? You work it backwards. And also that also includes like, where are you now? How far are you from that, right? How do you map out your plan to get there, right? And so then the final one was your succession plan, which is who's going to take over your responsibilities. Once you know what you want from an exit perspective, and that just means maybe you're out of the business, you get your time back, whatever. The succession plan is who's taking over your jobs, right? So if I'm doing payroll, who's taking that over? If I'm updating my website, which my website went down yesterday and I had to fix it. So, and then I had to hire the guy, but I know who I hired to help me do the coding, but nobody else does, right? So right now, if I die, it's a big problem. So anyway, long story short, like your succession plan is who's going to take over all your responsibilities and planning that. And that could be people that already work for you. That could be outsourcing. That could be VA. That could be technology. Nowadays you can build your COO, your CMO, your CFO all into an agent in ChatGPT. You could create them and then every day you just brain dump in there and they're processing and tracking and building and advising as you build towards your exit. And so you can do that. But it takes time, right? So anyhow, that's kind of how that started was sorry, I'm like doing a monologue here. But anyway, that's the point. It was like the 3
Sure.
plans everybody should have to not only take care of the people you love in your life, but also your employees who are relying on you. Many a business has disappeared because the owner dies or gets ill and there's nobody to pick up the reins. And it just disappears because they can't get access to anything. And so, yeah, I mean, thinking about that, it's like it's kind of heavy. It's not very fun. But think about the relief, right? Of knowing, right? I mean, we went on vacation once. It was my first, like, big I used to be scared of flying, I'm not anymore, but my first big flight, I wrote down just the basics, like, "These are where my bank accounts are," right? I wrote a note like, "If I die, I want my children have" I didn't have a will at the time. "I want my children to have this, they're all gonna share it. This is the code to my computer. This is my password to my debit card. This is" like, whatever. I just wrote down fast before I went because, like, what if? And I didn't want them to think that I didn't care enough about them to prepare, right? To leave a mess behind. But have I asked me if I updated that anytime recent? No. No. So, uh, I will say nowadays, though, it's much easier. Like, the things my hesitation now, like you were talking about starting, right? Starting. My hesitation now with, like, ChatGPT and stuff is that the time I invest now in a month will be a quarter. And so giving up my time, like 10 hours now in a month because the system's just learning so quickly and they're advancing so quickly and being able to connect to other programs and read and do tasks and things, all of that in the next month could be in ChatGPT as opposed to connecting everything, right? So it could
Yeah.
change that quickly. And then all that effort and work I put in to build it may not be necessary. So that's my hang up right now to start. Cause I'm like,
But it might not come, and then if you do, you might get it ahead of time, so
I might. I might build myself I'm still building myself, I'm building my business in ChatGPT. I just learned this like 2 weeks ago, that they have the projects. I don't know if do you use ChatGPT much?
a little bit basic.
Okay. Yeah. So same, same. I mean, I've used it for helping me with content and all kinds of stuff and advice. And I actually coded my computer, my Shopify with Claude and ChatGPT.
Awesome.
But but I got to the last little piece and I couldn't figure it out. So I had to hire somebody. That's what broke. So I was able to call him, right? But I did that. I'm not a coder, I'm not a programmer, but I knew what I wanted. And again, they're just advancing so quickly. But anyway, they have projects now in ChatGPT where you can create a project and make it and give it instructions like you would in a GPT or an agent. And you can create people in there that are real to you. You name them with a personality or whatever, and then they will help you to get to your goal.
Awesome. That's cool. Is that part of the free one, or do you have to pay for it?
I pay 20 a month for it. I don't know if it comes with a free one, but for 20 bucks a month, I feel like all that it can do that like I did a simple task. That's another thing you could do. Like, because I fly between Charlotte and Boston a lot because that's where I'm back in New Hampshire. I gave it a task to tell me when the flights are less than $30. And it's
Oh,
pretty
cool.
often, right? So every morning I get an email, not today, right? But it's looking.
Awesome. That's cool. Yeah, $20 a month. That's not bad at all. Do you have an
Yeah.
affiliate link? You can send it to me,
Think
and I'll
they do
definitely look.
affiliate. I don't think they do, but that's worth looking at for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love all the affiliate stuff because again, all the things you're doing, like, and this is, I guess, what Pace talks about too, is that, all the things you're doing and you're using, you just learn a cool new thing,
Hmm.
right? And then you share it, but you should be sharing it in content,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yep.
the things we learn from each other, whatever, should be content. It should help somebody else because if you don't share it, nobody else knows. So yeah, working on the
Exactly.
content piece.
Exactly. Where's your main base now? You said New Hampshire now?
Charlotte. It is Charlotte because 'cause I've committed to 2 years. I will say my husband does not want to live in Charlotte. So he is in New Hampshire where he wants to be, so I fly back and forth, usually once a month. But we're investing real estate here is where because it's growing so quickly here. Where are you?
I'm in Houston.
In
Houston, Texas.
Houston. Okay.
Yeah.
I flew in once to go on a cruise out of Galveston.
Okay.
It was a nice airport, and it was fast. That's all I know.
Charlotte. I
So
haven't been to Charlotte, and I haven't been to New Hampshire. I went to
Not a
Boston,
lot
but
of
I couldn't.
people. Yeah, not a lot of people unless you live in New England or like New York. New Hampshire is kind of like not so far, but for North Carolina, that's kind of far. We do have a beautiful fall. Worth visiting in the fall. But I will say it's not growing. Like it's not a city, it's not growing. And so for me, for what I wanted to do, on top of the fact that my grandkids are here, right? That was an extra motivation to pick Charlotte. I'd rather be on a beach somewhere personally. But they're here, so, okay, but it's growing, like, they say 125 people move here every day.
Mhm.
Houston's probably growing crazy like that too.
Don't think they ever stopped.
I know.
Houston's
And that was
so
it,
busy.
It's so busy, it's sprawling. So now I grew up on Long Island, and New York is always growing, right? But over my 50 plus years here, it's just gotten further and further out on Long Island. So when my ex and I moved to New Hampshire, he was commuting 5.5 hours a day.
Oh, wow.
Because by the time you, like, sat in traffic to get to the train, then you took the hour plus train in, then you went downtown, and then you wait for the it just that becomes normal because there's no housing closer that's affordable, right? And so you just went Long Island is it's finite amount of room, right? So it just keeps moving further and further and further out from the city. And so, do you travel 45 minutes to get to the train? Sure, if you could afford a house, right? And so that's kind of the interesting part about being on an island as opposed to, Houston might assume that you can kind of sprawl out all around. Um,
Yeah, everything's up.
Charlotte, same thing, right?
Yeah, this
Um,
is very
and
spread out. But 5
oh,
hours of travel, wow.
it's a lot. It was a lot. And you know what? When we moved to New Hampshire and he was commuting back and forth from Manhattan, he would go stay 4 days, come back for the weekend. And it was a 3.5 hour, 4 hour drive. But we saw him more with him being gone 4 days a week than when we were seeing him when he was coming home every night because it would take 4 hours and then he'd be home. And then he would go back 4 hours and be gone. But every day he would start his day at 4 or 5 in the morning and then not be able to get back until 8, 9. I mean, if you're going to work an 8 hour day, it's a hard life. I mean, that's a hard thing. And you spend a lot of time in the car, right?
Oh, yeah. I did something kinda like that. I worked in outskirts of Houston and in the industrial construction.
Mhm.
So it'd be 55 minutes in the morning wasn't too bad because it's 5 in the morning, but in the afternoon, it'd be anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours because of just traffic and
Yeah,
a 40-mile drive. You can have no accidents or 5 accidents, so
exactly.
did that for
It's
so many
like
years. And
and then you see traffic and you're like, oh. And again, being in New Hampshire, if you sit at a light more than one turn, I'm mad at New Hampshire because 'cause I'm like, "This is not supposed to be this way." But in New York, you could sit at that light 15 times.
right.
I'm not interested in that. Charlotte too. Charlotte is very busy and but it again, like Houston, it's sprawling, right? So people are traveling an hour, right? They might hit traffic or whatever. The city proper is pretty big and it takes you a half hour to get around, like to go anywhere, depending on traffic or whatever. But it's sprawling and it can grow out. So like we're kind of border of South Carolina. So I bought a rental house. We bought a rental house in Rock Hill, which is right over the border in South Carolina. But the commute is like 40 minutes, which again, not 5.5 hours, right? So, but I mean, it's still a drag, especially me as an accident. And we want things immediate. Now with Zoom after COVID and stuff, like we want like it's some days I think to myself, do I drive 40 minutes to go into my office to do my thing or do I gain an hour and 10 minutes or an hour and 20 minutes and just stay here and make it work or go to Panera, right? Cuz it's like is that extra hour or two worth it to me?
Exactly. I 100% feel you.
Yeah.
After my construction, I became a consultant for industrial construction,
Mhm.
and I got a remote job, and I'd go to the office, but that was an hour away, so it'd be 2 hours. And I spoke to the client, I go, "Hey, you're not here that often. I mean, if I work from home, I can give you an extra hour."
Oh,
He's like,
good.
"Really?"
Smart.
Yeah, because I
Take
saved
it.
myself 2 hours in the road, you know?
Right?
He's like, "Okay."
I mean, that's amazing. Like, and again, nowadays it's more common. Like a lot of people work in their pajamas from everywhere. And it's interesting how it's affected the real estate market. And because people can so up I'm in New Hampshire part-time, but during COVID we were there and everything that was available to buy got bought by people from New York and people from Boston. And a lot of them moved, but a lot of them just have now a second home. But the market, there's nothing on the market. Like if you look in our town, there's like, first of all, everything's sky high, but second, there's like very little to buy. And so it's fascinating how that COVID, right, and wanting to not be stuck in the city, but also the ability to work from anywhere, people have chosen to go rural,
Yeah.
you know?
As long as you have
How
good internet connection. My wife asked me,
Yeah.
she's like, "Would you move to a ranch?" I go, "As long as I got good internet."
That's exactly it. They put in fiber for us in our like, it was a funded thing, and, so yeah, that's kinda what happened, and so but it's just interesting, you never know how things are gonna ripple effect, right? Or think
Right.
through how they ripple effect.
Where are your stores at now?
So I have, one still in New Hampshire, and, I don't know if it will last or not. We have, upcoming construction, and that's again a ripple effect kind of a thing. We're gonna have 3 years of construction where they replace all the pipes in our downtown, and, keep in mind New Hampshire is cold, right? So 6, 7 months of the year, people are not out strolling Main Street, so they're gonna do all that construction in our peak season, so the time we make money. So, we'll see if that's gonna last, and the town is the area is declining, median income's low, whatever. So one's up there. I'd like to keep it just because the people it's my longest one, is Candy headquarters, and, that's home. But, I have 2 now in Charlotte Metro, so I'm in McAdenville, which is right outside of Charlotte in Gaston County, and it's in a town called, McAdenville, and McAdenville's known for the last 60, 70 years as Christmas Town, USA. So it's a very quiet town, rural, even though it's only 15 minutes from Charlotte. But come December, 600,000 people come here. So it was crazy. So like the rest of the year, it's crickets. And then that 1 month between 5 and 10 every night, you have thousands upon thousands of people. It's interesting. So that's where my first one is here. And then my second one is the co-brand, and that's in Lake Wiley, which is right over the border in South Carolina. And so that's again outskirts of Charlotte, it's further south. And again, somebody needed a partner. I was looking for a space and she said, I could use a partner. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So we kind of struck a deal. And so that one's, I mean, it's working. It's not as profitable as I want, but she also didn't have the foot traffic I had hoped for that she kind of said she did. And so now it's kind of like starting from scratch. My goal for the future ones, again, you live and learn and you trust but verify. This is the life lesson, right? Is that they have to have at least 250,000 a year in their location as opposed to on their food truck, right? That's kind of her situation. And so, because if they have the traffic, then I should be able to do well. If they don't have the traffic though, then I have to build it and that takes longer and that's more painful. So, I mean, it doesn't mean I can't do it. It just means it's doesn't go as quickly.
Extrovert.
Yeah. It's extra work
Yeah.
and I don't want to. But again, it's my proof of concept, which is
Right.
great. Right. So yeah, so same for this store. Like this store is in a very quiet little town. And it was the first one. And I was kind of this outlier, right? I'm applying to all these places in Charlotte and they don't know me from anybody. I don't have contacts here. I don't have anyone to vouch for me. I'm saying I'm moving to Charlotte, but I'm in New Hampshire. I'm flying in to look at spaces. So it was a risk for them. And so a lot of them said no. So this was the first one where I could prove. So, sometimes you take what you can get to make the point, and then you can expand. So the first two are not my best options, but I'm here, right? It's proof of concept. And then I
You gotta
can go
progress, you know?
correct. And again, not because I didn't know, but sometimes you have to settle for what you can, right? And then work it. And so that's kind of the next piece is the next 8 stores local will all be in high traffic areas and with partnerships. So that part, again, it's different from when I started, which was myopic and it was just me. And now I'm thinking, who can I work with? Who can I partner with? Who can help me to get where I want to go? Which again, I give a lot of credit to Pace Morby for that because I'm thinking now about that, right? We're always so encouraged to be who do we know? Who can help us? Who can I help? Right? And connecting each other like, oh, so and so, like yesterday in one of our group, like chats, it was like, "Who owns a business?" And it was like, "Boom, boom, boom," and people were, like, shouting out, "So and so." I saw my name come up, like, "Tracy owns a candy store." I was like, "Yeah," right? So but again, only because they know that I do, only
Right.
because I connected with them, even though we're all around the country, right? The effort, right? You invited me to be on your podcast, and now you'll know I own a candy store, and hopefully I'll know a little bit more about you and not just me talking all the time, but I know you're in Houston, so
Yeah.
that's I have something in my brain to tick off, like, you know?
REI from Houston, that's my branding.
Nice.
Let's see, can you see that there? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
My wife.
Beauty. Yeah.
How'd you get into candies? Into the candy
No.
business?
It's funny. My sister actually always wanted to own a candy store, and her name is Randy, and she always was like, "I'm gonna own it, call it Randy's Candy," because she worked in a candy store when she was a kid. So anyway, in the chaos of my life when my husband was having problems and my kids all went to school and I was kind of figuring out what am I going to do and everything's kind of crazy right now. I actually had a different business plan for a different business that I thought would be really helpful for the community. And it was like community thrift is what it was called, but it was this idea of, when you have kids and they outgrow stuff and you just get tired of seeing all this stuff and you just go through their closets and you're like, I don't care. I'm not selling it. Just take it. Right. That for those moments, I wanted to make like a thrift store for people to be able to just donate it, right? And then we could resell it, whatever. And I had seen this cool model. So I built out this whole plan, met with SBA, all these things to build it, just to have my own. And then one of the spaces I was looking at had the creaky floors, like an old-fashioned candy store, and had the light, and it just was like and when I went and walked through it, I was like, "You know what would be great here would be a candy store." And I just like that, I was like, "I'm gonna have a candy store." And I did. And I saw and here I am all these years later. But, like, it was one of those moments where I was like, "You know what would be great here?" And just the space and I actually didn't even get that space, but I still moved forward, right? And so, like I was chair of our downtown group. It's a main street. So in New York, we don't have a lot of main streets. We have strip malls, and you probably have that similar in Houston. But like New England is known for having like little quintessential New England main streets, little like church. They call them squares, but they're circles usually, like where the church is and where their main street is, because they're not as populated. So it's very but it's like kind of the heart of their town. We didn't really have that on Long Island. We had a few towns that had a main street and they were kind of more fancy, like you'd go and walk the shops. So anyway, in New England, I thought that was really special. So I wanted to be in that footprint of like that downtown, in the heartbeat of the city that represents the town, that people from Boston drive to this little town to go have lunch and walk around Main Street. It's like a day excursion, right? It's just that quintessential with the church at the head of the square. And, it's just really cool. And I was like, they didn't have a candy store, was the real point. So I was like, they need a candy store. Every downtown needs a candy store, right? So I was like, and there wasn't one. There was nothing really for sweets. I was like, I'm going to do it. And so I did. And then here I am. All these years later, 18 years, I've moved a bunch of places, but like all these kids that were babies coming in my candy store are now like, off in college. It's crazy. It's crazy to be able to watch that, but it's also crazy to be able to see them grow up, their parents and them, and then they work for you. And they can tell you, like, I had a guy who their first date was at the candy store and he proposed to her outside the candy store. And then on their wedding day, they came and took pictures outside the candy store
Oh,
because
wow.
it meant something to them.
Yeah.
And to be so, like, it's not just like 7-Eleven, right? It's for me, it's the emotional piece of that, and that's the part I love. It's about celebrations, like, nobody goes to the candy store to not buy something. They're there, they may not have intended to be there, right? They might have walked, but they went in with the idea of wanting to be dazzled and explore and get something sweet, treat themselves, see all their old fashioned it's so funny, I was on a call with somebody no, I was at the Walmart and I was talking to a lady and, while she was checking me out and they said, "I own a candy store," and she said, "Yeah, yeah," and she goes, "What kind?" And I was telling her it's a bulk candy store, chocolate, and I said, and all the old school stuff, like, "You remember candy cigarettes?" And she got this humongous smile on her face, and I said, "You see?" I said, "You felt all the things just by thinking about it." And she goes, "I did," and I was like, "That is why I'm in business, because like, that everybody has that flush of, "I remember" they all tell me where they went when they were a kid, what they bought, how much it cost. Sometimes they tell me the owner's name, where it was, and a lot of them have disappeared, but it's like a special memory, and so I like the idea that the business can have a nostalgic connection with a community. I like that. So
That's
that's
amazing.
kinda why we still have it. Yeah.
Does your, Life is Sweet have an online presence?
Yep. So during COVID, so I actually, interestingly enough, when I was trying to exit all these businesses, so I had a buyer for one, and it fell through because of COVID. I liquidated the second restaurant that my landlord, the one I was having trouble with, did not renew my lease, so I had to let it go. And then I had a partner who was earning in at the candy store. And then COVID happened, and we were like, "Oh crap! Like, what do we do?" And so we went heavily online. So we doubled our business that year. Like we were doing 150 orders a week. It was crazy. And so I was like, this is the answer. Like, I don't have to move. We'll just set this up and like we could sell to everybody all over the country. But what happened after COVID for a lot of people is that when people could go out and do it themselves, they're not ordering as much online. So, like, as soon as COVID was kind of over and ad costs went crazy with Facebook and whatever, and it just wasn't sustainable. So, we still have the presence, but we're not advertising specifically for it. And we kind of figured out some like lead magnet things. Like, I do a national birthday club. So, they sign up and then they get candy for their birthday and they have to pay shipping, but I give them free candy to kind of celebrate goodwill and all that, just to be on people's radar across the country. But I kind of, after a few years of really chasing that, recognizing that for whatever reason, it's probably more an in-person experience is where you're really going to do well.
For those memories, yeah, especially. But it's good. You still have the digital presence, the online presence. People can go
Sure.
visit you,
Yep.
lifeissweet.com.
Yep. The lifeissweetcandystore.com. Yep.
Okay, lifeissweetcandystore.com. So if whoever's watching this, check it out and sign up for our birthday gift and get yourself some
Yeah.
free
Free
candy for your
candy.
birthday.
Yeah, why not? And then whatever else, because it's super fun. What I like is that you get to make your own custom like, if you were in the store, you come in, you get a glove and a bag, you get to make your own bag, exactly the what you want in it. We do that with a box online. So if they wanted, Skittles and Swedish fish and malt balls, that's what they can put in, right? And that is just like if they were here, except we're making it for them, but they get to pick. So I like that. Again, customization and fun.
That's great. Great story. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, it's like, I don't wanna see it die. I wanna see it grow, and I think it's important. Yeah. And at the very least, I mean, I'm the candy lady probably forever.
No, especially you're gonna be living forever in those people's memories with the
Yep.
proposing there, date there, after the wedding.
Isn't that amazing? Oh
Oh,
my gosh, this year in McAdenville, again, quiet town, but their first day of school, all these kids came in with their little first day of school outfits for kindergarten. Oh my gosh, I was just dying. I was like, it's our first day of school celebration. I was like, oh my gosh, how sweet is that? Like, I mean, that will be special. Or like people get their braces off and they go to the candy store, right? So like those kind of fun things. So yeah, that's the goal is to be a part of their every year, every holiday, every special occasion, even the bad days, right? To go treat themselves. Cause then that's a more personal business.
yeah, that's a good reason. I never looked at a candy store that way, but now that you
Mhm.
bring it up, I do remember one that I used to go to when I was younger at the mall.
Did you? Oh, and every time you went to the mall, you probably went there.
Of course.
It's just
Awesome.
funny. I love it. Thank you for yeah, I mean, I'm glad because I think, again, we all have some it's like something that's the same for pretty much everybody. Everybody has their favorite candy at the very least, whether they eat sugar anymore or not, right? They all have a favorite candy.
I used to sell candy when I was in 6th grade to have some money. I'd go to Sam's, buy some candy, sell it,
We all
and
did
so I could have
that.
spending money.
We all did that. That was like when Sam's was new. We didn't have a Sam's near us. You're probably younger than me, but we did have like a cigarette distributor that was in our town and they sold bulk candy. That was before Sam's Club and Costco and all that stuff. And they would go and buy like a box and sell it at school. They made a lot of money. Jolly Ranchers were the one, like that little stick. Do you remember those? The skinny ones? Those were a biggie. They sold those for $1. That was a lot of money back then. In the old days.
Oh, yeah.
Low tax, yeah, I mean, whatever you could get and then you get in trouble for being entrepreneurial if you got
Oh,
caught.
yeah. Yep, yep.
Mhm. Yep, take advantage of your schoolmates.
But you don't know, you're just trying to make your life, better.
Mhm. What's wrong with that? They should have encouraged that. They should given an award, right?
Exactly.
They should
It's
have.
cool.
But yeah, isn't that funny? I'm so glad you brought that up because so many people did that. So many people did that. And I wonder, it'd be interesting to study how many entrepreneurs did that when they were a kid.
Yeah, and ask when you're at the retreat for Honors Club.
Yeah,
Or
we
final
should have
club.
we should have a poll. Interesting.
Even
Anyway.
if you're able to create, like, a little pop-up at the Squad Up Summit for your candy store.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Ah, I think it'll be so fun. Like, yeah. I don't know, I have day with Pace this week, so I'm gonna be able to ask some questions and try to ingratiate myself in there for
Awesome.
candy, right? Why not?
real estate. You said you have a couple of rentals. What's your
Yep.
portfolio looking like for real estate?
So we started again during COVID. COVID was, for a lot of people was a changing point, right? COVID was my husband was as a builder, my second husband, I remarried. And he has been a builder for 45 years, but he was that kind of carpenter, do everything guy, vinyl siding, windows, he can do slate roofs, he can do all that stuff, right? Fix foundations, he's done everything. And in New England, that's kind of what you do, right? But he didn't really ever build a big business. He's just always had work, and he would find a friend to help him if he needed extra, but mostly it's just been him. And so, but when COVID happened, everyone kind of shut down and nobody was going out and about. All of his referral work, right? He always had jobs lined up, 2, 3, 4 out, and that kind of stopped. And so we talked about, for me, all my cash flow stopped, right? All my businesses were closed, and then he didn't have his referral work. People weren't letting you in their house. I mean, do you remember we just talked about this the other day. Remember when you were putting your groceries in the garage and not letting anyone they would, wipe down the mail, the first couple weeks, it was crazy, nobody touched anything. So, anyway, they weren't letting carpenters in their houses to do work, right? So we decided, well, what could we do that would not be reliant on an outside business, right? And so we decided he always wanted to build a tree house. So we built a tree house in our yard that we rent on Airbnb. And it was kind of one of his dreams. And so he got to build his dream, and his friend hand cut and did the frame raising kind of like old house, but it's 20 feet in the air. And so he did that. And then all of the supplies, and we got behind waiting for the frame and the lumber and stuff because we went to a local sawmill so we could order what we wanted. Anyway, he started doing an apartment in our basement because it's two of us in this big 4-bedroom house. So we have a walkout basement. So why don't we put an apartment in there? Then we'd have income for that. At the very least, we'd be able to cover our mortgage and have a place to live if the world shut down again. And so that's what we did. We did those first two things. And then in the middle of that, had some extra cash from the PPP. My friend who used to be my food rep became a real estate agent. She said, I know you're dabbling. Why? I think I have a house for you to buy. And I was like, I don't know. We had read about it, but we didn't know anything about it. And it's scary. The first one's always scary. And we were not in a community. We weren't in a program learning. We just were figuring it out. So we went and saw this house. It had tons of water damage. It was in his hometown in Bellows Falls, Vermont. And he, called and it was $62,000 and was kind of like, that's a lot of money. But it's not a lot of money for a house, but it is a lot of money. And so it was kind of like, what should we do it? Can we do it? What's the worst that could happen, right? The pragmatist, okay, what's the worst that could happen? So my husband and his skill set, what's the worst thing? For me, it would be foundation. What's a worst case scenario? And he said, I mean, pretty much everything's fixable. And if I can't do it, I know who can. And I was like, that's a good asset. And he's done so much. And I was like, let's try. So we just wrote a check. And what got me over the finish line, right, from fear was, well, my Jeep is $60,000. This is a house and it's 60. At least this is going to retain its value. My Jeep is going to just keep decreasing. So we decided to do it. And so he spent 4 or 5 months while finishing my projects at our house, as well as doing that all at the same time. It took about 6 months from buy to sell, because it took a couple months with the mortgage for the person who was buying it. And we put 30 in, he did the work, and we sold for 185. And so we were like, all right, let's do that
Beautiful
again.
concept.
Right?
Yeah.
And so then the next one we did was an auction. We bought it on auction. It's actually a really cool story that we went for our auction. We were like, okay, we've just finished this house. We have this money. What are we going to do next? Right? We didn't know anything about wholesaling. We were a direct to agent. So we're just buying. And she said, oh, there's an auction. Why don't you go check it out? So we went to the auction. My husband went, I was at work, and he calls me and a friend, and he's like, they want to do something weird. And I don't know if this is a real thing. And I'm like, okay. He's like, they said, because there's only 4 of us here, that we're going to just bid once. Nobody else will bid. And then we're going to go to Dunkin' Donuts and do another auction. What do you think? And I'm like, that's crazy. So he's like, you talk to him. Because I handle all the books and I handle the business part. He does the work. So he puts me on the phone and the guy says, listen, I know this is weird. I know you don't know me. but the 3 of us know each other. Your husband doesn't even have a check to give. He didn't bring a check. He didn't know to bring a check. So he technically doesn't even have a right to bid. But what we're gonna do, you guys are newbies, trust us. We're gonna bid. We're gonna go to Dunkin' Donuts. We'll meet you there. So I'm like, okay. So my husband picks me up. We go to Dunkin' Donuts. They get the house. I think it was like 44,000 was starting bid, and they bid 45. And that was it. And so the girl was so angry. She knew them, and she was so angry because, like, nobody wants to bid. And they're like, nope. And so she knew. So anyway, we go to Dunkin' Donuts, and they said, this is how it works. Everyone's going to write down on a piece of paper what you were willing to pay for that house. Whoever's highest wins the house. And the difference between what we paid the bank and what you're willing to pay, you write to all 3 of us, the 3 others. So we had put down 75,000 on paper. And so we won. And they said, okay, so you write each of us a $10,000 check. And I was like, is this real? He's like, yeah, we're just going to sign over the contract to you. I'm like, is that real? Now, again,
Wow.
keep in mind,
Hey,
no,
probably from the auction. Oh my god.
I had no idea that was even allowed. And so they gave me all their business cards. They're like, we understand this is a trust. We won't deposit your check for 30 days and you'll see this is real. I promise you. You live here. We don't. We drove an hour to get here. We're happy. You're happy. Trust us. It's going to be okay. If you have any trouble, call us. So I have three old guys that do this all the time, kind of on my side. But it was a trust thing. Again, wrote the check. So I wrote like a set, right? Basically 10, 10, 10 plus the extra 5 that he put because he had to do the deposit of 5. And then I left with a contract, called the auction people, the lawyers. And then a month later, it closed. And everybody was happy. And then 2 days later, while my husband was cleaning it out illegally, we went in and we're just cleaning it out while we were waiting. And somebody in the neighborhood was like, "What are you gonna do with this house?" And he's like, "I don't know. My wife thinks we could get 150 for it, whatever." He's like, "I want it." So we sold it in 2 days for double the money. So
As
those
is? Just
as
clean?
is. Mhm.
Wow.
We sold it for 150. We were like, "And we wanna do more of that." So that was 2. So that encouraged us to really think about doing this more and more. My husband all the time is like, "Just don't do candy stores. Let's do real estate. We can make a lot more money." I'm like, "Well," you know. But yeah, that was like our first 2. And then we did 2 more after that. And then my husband hurt his shoulder and my labor was out of service for a while. Right. And so we bought Gator and then we bought Sub 2 as he was supposed to be watching the Zooms and learning. You can see where this is going. And so after a couple months, he was like, I don't want to do this. But you can, you should do this. So he handed it to me in January. And January of 24, I went to Squad Up and then I bought into Owners Club and here we are. And I haven't done a ton. Like we did 1 Sub 2 here. We're doing another flip finally after all of his recovery. And we haven't done a ton, but we've learned a lot. And I think the opportunities like that been on the No One Left Behind challenge, like as the person who pulled the leads, right? I'm not really interested in wholesaling other than the cash flow, right? I don't really want to go door knock. I don't really want to do a lot of those things. So I've made a lot of friends. Like we just hosted Pace a couple weeks ago in Charlotte. You know, we had 200 people come. So we're kind of like my friends and I befriended here. She's a lifer in Charlotte, and we're kind of just organizing. We're trying to build, groups and help newbies like to do the thing and make the calls. And I'm pulling leads, and we're trying to build something that just help some new people get their legs under them and to start, like you're talking about. Just sometimes it's just start.
Yeah,
Um,
starting's the biggest thing. People
I
wanna know
know.
everything, but you don't need to know everything.
No, and you can get lost in knowing everything.
Oh, yeah.
That's causes paralysis, right? Pick a lane and just do it and commit to it for a few months. And then if it's not your thing, do something else. So, yeah, that's kind of like so that's what we've learned a lot. I learned that sub 2 is a real thing because I did one. I did a lease option after that for the sub 2, so I learned about that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I mean, I'm evicting them, so it's more complicated, and I wish I hadn't done it, but
Well,
Yeah,
you're
I
still
mean,
probably
it's
ahead,
just
aren't you?
I mean, they're still paying. The problem is in South Carolina has this is one of those things you learn, right? You live and learn. Sometimes you just gotta mess around and find out. So we did the lease option. Everything seemed great. And I explained everything. I did like an addendum with like real human language as opposed to legalese about this is what we talked about. This is what it is, yada, yada,
Right.
yada. And they violated the contract the first month. They let somebody live in my yard. I came back because I it's a double lot, so I put my motor home that we bought in the second lot so that I have a place to be while I'm here. I don't have to pay for an apartment, and we have the motor home. So I'm there. I could see what they're doing. And they agreed to that. That's fine. But I come home from New Hampshire and there's a lady in a tent in my yard. Like, what's going on? They're like, "Oh, she got kicked out of our house, so we're letting her stay. Her family's gonna come and with a dog." I'm like, "No, absolutely not." So she stayed another week because I was too nice and finally left. But they've done a lot of things. So I knew they violated the first month. Like, you just forfeited your $10,000. I mean, what are you doing? So anyway, long story short, lots of problems, and then I was going to evict them, and we went to eviction court, and everything should have been fine, except we did a lease option. And South Carolina has a weird little law about if you've done some kind of rent-to-own lease option, they technically have some type of say in the property or some kind of what's the word that I'm looking for? They have like an investment in the property, and the lower court will not rule on that. They won't evict them from a place that they potentially have ownership of. So it has to go to a higher court, of which, because it's a non-juried event, they said they won't even look at it for 120 days.
Oh, wow.
And then it could be up to a year before they schedule it.
Oh, wow.
So don't do a lease option. And
It's
I
that
mean, I'm glad I did it,
mm,
right? I'm glad I did it. And other people have had no problem, but this particular county court will not, the magistrate will not hear it. Yeah. So it's complicated. But again, you live and you learn, right? Thankfully, at
right.
that court, she told the tenant, you better be paying her because if you get an eviction, nobody's ever going to rent from you to you again. And so it scared him enough that he's been paying, even though we're in the middle of eviction proceedings. So at least I'm getting paid, and
Yeah,
that's
that's
paying the mortgage. Yeah. So, but again, so we learned flip. The last couple of years, we learned to flip. We learned about auctions. We learned about signing over contracts. I've learned about pulling leads and calling and explaining sub two to people on the phone. We've learned about buying sub two. We've gone through that process. We've learned about the lease option. We've learned about the court system. I mean, look at all the things we got to learn. What a
yeah,
gift.
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
How'd you get your sub 2 deal?
And actually was somebody else's sub too. And so Luciano, who was in the community for a long time, he was kind of like a traveling nomad. He would do sub twos wherever. And they had tried to do a wrap a couple times on this particular house in Rock Hill. And their money lender wanted her money. They kind of were tired. He was getting out of that. He wanted to go back to nursing. And so he put it up in sub two. And I was like, you know what? That's exactly where I want to be. The double lot felt like it was meant to be. It's like a concrete pad. And then I put in a plug for my RV. I don't have to go pay park fees and all that stuff. There's
Yeah,
water. So it seemed like it was going to be a perfect solution. And I wanted to see the process. I'm definitely someone who learns by doing. And so understanding the sub two process, right? And the court and the legal process of that, right? Right. Even though we had a TC, but just understanding that part was, I think, really helpful. And yeah, so I mean, so we got the deal and we went in and I did something that I learned. Because one of the things I want to do is buy businesses and also connect sellers with buyers, right? Because I'm dealing with sellers and people were exiting. So there's like some nice, common ground there. And so, but one of the classes I've taken was this gentleman, Roland Frazier. And he talks about exiting and buying businesses with your money out of pocket. And one of his tricks was a deferred down payment. So you can, let's say you're buying a business, say, all right, I will pay you 40,000 up front, but I want to defer it for 2 months. Is that okay? And they're like, okay. So then what he does is he gets into the business, finds the assets, the way to pull the 40,000 to be able to pay them in 60 days, or he'll get into their social media and have a sponsor for something, or he'll figure out a way, or a receivables loan, or right. So I applied that. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do it, but I'm going to give you 25. They wanted 35 to be all in, whatever. And I said, I want to do a deferred down payment. So I did part up front and then part. So I got to like play and try that. And they were like, okay. So like 6 months later, I owed another 10, but it was just, again, learning, because the thing about creative, it's like anything can go.
Right.
You just have to get both people on the same page to agree to it, but it can
Right.
look like anything.
Yeah.
And
He says
so
he's got that one deal where he goes to Atlanta and the lady buys him dinner every time he's there.
I know, isn't that crazy? It's like,
Yeah.
you just never know, right? And this property is maintained its value. It's within 40 minutes of Charlotte, so it's not gonna go down in price, but it's been an aggravation for sure. The people, it made me realize I don't wanna do long-term rentals. I don't necessarily wanna do I'm not gonna do a lease option again there, and I think I wanna lean more into, co-living just because I could hire pad split or somebody to manage it because I don't wanna deal
Right.
I deal with staff already. I don't wanna deal with people in other ways, right?
Exactly. On a home and something happens and they want something done quick, like plumbing or
I'm good.
HVAC, all that. Yeah,
Well, and you
definitely.
deal with people's craziness, right? Like, I wanna leave all the craziness at the restaurant that I'm not gonna open again, right? Like, let's keep it simple. And I just sometimes you have to learn what you don't want. That's part of actually what we do when we do exit planning for business owners is like, okay, let's write down the easiest way to figure out what you want is to list what you don't want. Because usually people have really strong opinions about what they do not want. Like, I don't
Right.
want to do that ever again. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And so when they write that, all of a sudden it kind of eliminates a lot of what the possibilities were. So yeah, so same for me. But again, sometimes you don't know. It sounds like the appeal of sub two is you can have all these houses with like maybe no very little money out of pocket and you don't need all the loans. You don't have to go through the aggravation and being a small business owner, sometimes it's a pain to get approved and all that stuff. So it answered a lot of problems. And so I love that part. But again, we learned, I don't really want to have 100 houses in my portfolio for that person, right? With one family renting. I want to have
Right.
maybe 100 houses, but I want to have 8 bedrooms and somebody else manage it.
Yeah. Get you.
Yeah. So,
Completely understand. How's your
yeah.
treehouse Airbnb doing? You still
Doing
have
that
it up?
so that one has become, it wound up being so again, we live and learn, right? 2024 was a learning year, which meant it was an expensive and costly year. Uh, we got when we built that, we got a permit in our town. It's a town of 800 people. It's during COVID. He explained what we were doing. The guy that is there is ancient and been there forever. Got a permit. We put the permit up. We built it. We made the mistake that we were doing land work around it, and we were going to bury the wires to put electric. And they said, you could put water in here. You're really close to the septic tank, and your leach field is all right here. Why don't you just tie in? We're doing the dirt work now. We were like, okay, say sorry later. Well, that chicken came home to roost, and the town tried to sue us, and they're very big on. So we had built the rental in the basement and we built the tree house. And so the tree house did not have any amenities, meaning it didn't have a full kitchen. It just had like a microwave and a fridge because we don't want people cooking out there. But the apartment down below did have a full a kitchen, bathroom, right? And so, but we didn't really change any walls. So we just didn't think about applying for a permit. I mean, we're in a little town of 800 people. Who cared? Well, they did.
Right.
And
Sure.
so
Yes.
they cared. They saw both listings on Airbnb. We were renting both of them. We made like 40,000 the first year. So it was like great.
Wow.
Like, I mean, this is just we already have it. We already own it. So they sent cease and desist. We had to have lawyers. We had to apply for different permits and all this other stuff. And it cost about they shut us down for 6 months. We had to put a $25,000 septic in because you had to upgrade your septic because it's based on how many rooms, not really how many people live there. Because, there's 2 people most of the time. And they made us take out our kitchen because in their town, you're only allowed 1 ADU. They don't want multiple. And so they considered the basement apartment an ADU and they considered the treehouse an ADU. So I had to pick one.
Wow.
And so it was I learned a lot about the law and about lawyers and a lot of tears and frustrations about a weird, antiquated state like system. But anyway, so what we had to do was make the but I got creative. The midterm rental, instead of it being an apartment per se, it's now an owner's suite with its own bathroom and living room and their own access. So that's how I'm able to I do that as midterm, so it's not always on. And then the treehouse is still going strong. We were able to open it again, but the problem with that is it's like you have all this momentum and you're booked out, and then all of a sudden they stop it, and then it takes a long time to catch up. So we lost all that income that we could have had,
Right.
plus all the cost, right? But it's operational. We were not as full in January, but again, it's working, right? We make $2,000 to $3,000 a month. It's usually just weekends. We're playing with it. It's in the middle of nowhere in New Hampshire. It's not like, people driving 2 hours to stay at it. So it's not like they're going to come all day. It's not, they're not going to do it Monday through Friday usually. So, but we're still doing the short term. We're still doing the midterm, which works out great because it's 3 or 4 months. And if they like it, then they extend another 3 months. And it's usually like one person who's a traveling nurse. We don't have to worry about cleaning it every other day. And that works out perfect. And then the rental down here. So, we've done some things, right? We've learned some things. We've built, we've flipped, we did one hard money loan. I didn't enjoy it, but I did it. This latest flip, we had a PML who lent us the full purchase price. We just paid for the rehab and the closing. So again, like we're learning, when you're doing it and you're paying for everything yourself, you're not building the connections. So you're not building the relationships to keep being able to do bigger and more things. We were new in the community, never borrowed from anybody in the community. But it's a good first one. It's on the market less than, I don't know, we bought it December 30th and it's ready. And it's on the market. We got an offer today. So done. Hopefully we'll make that one. I think we bought for 89. We had 10 for closing and connection fees, 10 to put in. My husband obviously did the work and we'll probably sell it for 165 or 170. The offer today was 166. So it's a nice profit for 40 days.
Heck yeah. Awesome. Congratulations. You're moving along quick. This last
We're
since
trying.
going
I
in.
mean, it's nice when the
You're
cost
not
of
trying,
things
you're
go up.
doing.
Yeah,
You're
we're
doing.
just we just gotta pick our lane. I think the next so I think, what, like, remember I said sometimes something happens, you're like, "Okay, this is my path," right? Something comes from outside. I went to my husband again is in New Hampshire, I'm here. The flips take a while. Sometimes they take 4 months, especially if you have a mortgage involved and it's a big pain and they have approvals and inspections, all that stuff. But I said to him, 40, 60 days, he's older, a little older than me, and his body hurts a lot. When he's building all day, every day, he hurts. And so I'm like, what if though we could do pad split? We could get a house, a bigger house, like a 2,000 square foot, put in a couple rooms, which he could easily do really quickly. We're in and out 2 weeks and we're set up and we're ready to go. Like, what if we could do that? And I think that is our next. So we're looking for those kind of houses in Charlotte. Pad Split just opened in Charlotte they only have like 35 houses in Charlotte right now. And at least for the first one, we use them just to see what the system looks like. 6, 7, 8 rooms in a house. If one person were evicting, it doesn't shut down all the money,
Right.
right? It's paying for itself. The flip, right? You get the money once and that's it. But if you did the repair or you did the adjustment and then kept it, now you got money plus
Yep.
property, right? It's a
And you
smarter
gotta pay those
way.
taxes on the short-term gains.
You do.
As for
You
you
do.
get your depreciation on your houses, hopefully appreciation. So definitely just
Yeah.
double check with Pad Split. You said they're new in the area that they do cover that part of town that you're in.
Yes, they do. Yep.
Okay.
I went to their meeting to understand what they're looking for. And so we've been in touch with them. Because again, we've been kind of leading here, like having weekly meetups and like we organize the thing for PACE. So, it's a good next thing for us. So we have like 6 of us who are making calls on, long-term properties. People are downsizing. Nobody wants a house that's 4-3 anymore unless they have kids. So there's a lot of those around Charlotte. So yeah, so that's like our next path. I was like, okay, because I was like, maybe we should do land, maybe we should do this, maybe we should do some more flips. The flips are great for fast money, but I mean wholesale's probably better for fast money. But again, that's a whole new game to learn. And so I think, the pad split settles his building. I want to make something need
Right.
and skill without having to go find someone. And then he could start doing that for other people. So my big secret is I want to get him to Charlotte, even just in 2 week stints so he could learn and adapt. Because otherwise he'll never get here.
Should
So
start watching some of Jamil's YouTube where he does with his sister the Pad Split
yes, yes. Is it good?
design
I haven't watched
process.
it.
Oh yeah.
Uh-huh.
They take away most of the common areas, and they, like, take away the dishwasher because 'cause they're not gonna be using it,
Right.
and sets extra pantry room for each place,
Oh, I
extra
love it.
rest
Are you
strips for
doing
each.
co-living? Are you
I
doing
do have
co-living?
one. Yes, I have a
Oh,
sober living that I'm doing,
nice.
and I'm partnering with another owners club member doing a fourplex. That one's actually just single families, but another North Carolina guest that I had, shout out to Adam Colburn.
Oh, I love him. He's doing all kinds of things. He's
Yeah, we're
fascinating.
partnering up on a sober living that he has in Tennessee.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Mhm.
I love that. I mean, I have a heart for that, but again, I didn't want we researched that in Vermont. We had a big old Victorian with like 10 rooms, and it was a really reasonable price, and that like the local organization, because they really could use it in their town. It would be like a meeting space and sober living and whatever, and they would run it, but it kind of fell through. And I was like, I don't know that I want to. I need somebody to run that.
Right. You need to find an operator. You don't wanna do it
Yeah.
yourself.
No, no. And if there's a system out there, like that's why I said, let's just do pad split the first time. If we don't love it, we'll at least know how it works,
Right.
you know?
One tip when you do get your pad split up and running is pad split will take your first 10
10
days of
days.
rent.
Mhm. Yep.
So when you do your listing, set it up to where you have to approve the listings because there'll be people that stay for 2 weeks and
Yeah.
you're not going to make any money off of it. So you want to make sure you
Oh,
pay for
that's
at least
right.
a month. So
Yeah.
do must approve all the applications
Nice.
to
Nice.
make sure they're staying long enough to make some money.
Yes. Yes, and they said if you fill it through them, they'll waive the 10-day. So that was
Right.
interesting. And so, I mean, not that I wanna be filling it, but you never know, right? And so but I just said, even if we just do it the first time to understand, sometimes you just have to pay you pay for college or you learn School of Hard Knocks, right? Like you figure it, you pay one way or the other, but sometimes just to get the shortcut and understand how it works and the legalities and the system, worth it the first time, and then we can decide whether we wanna keep going or not. But, I mean, at least it's starting here, and Charlotte's growing so quickly, so it's nice to be on the front of that wave. If you're in Atlanta, you're kinda on the back of that wave,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, understood. So you're looking for properties in Charlotte?
Charlotte Metro, at least I would do because we thought well, again, we went to this meeting, and they said they can do up to 4 with a shared bathroom. I was originally looking for a 4-3,
Hmm.
so that way and then maybe an owner's suite, but you don't really make that much more by having a suite with its own bathroom. You
Right.
make very little more. It's not worth putting an extra bathroom. So my thought was like if we have a 4-2, we could put 2 extra rooms in and now we've got 3 rooms sharing with each bathroom, that's fine. Like even a 3-2 would work, right? 4-2, and then we can build it out. But yeah, so we're looking for older and there's a bunch of them long term on market. I set my alerts in Zillow to tell me, every time they change the price or whatever. They're about 350, which isn't terrible for Charlotte for that size house. But again, not knowing the structure, how are we gonna fund it? How are we gonna, how who so the idea is we'll try to find some money lenders who wanna come into the deal as a partner. They put up the money, we do the construction, I manage the whole, the pad split part. That maybe we can, wedge it in that way or something. But yeah, just to get the loans and all that. It's sometimes it's just what you don't know. But if you wait till you know everything, you won't do anything,
Right.
like your podcast talks about, right?
Exactly. Gotta start to progress.
Yeah, just
Progression
gotta
over
start and
perfection.
figure it out, right? If it falls apart, do it again.
That's the thing about
Yeah,
Pacey, is he does things so quick that he'll do it 3 times before you
you even
even
thought
try
of
to do it once.
exactly. It's
That
funny, the
outweighs
partner
maybe.
the partner that I made here, we just clicked right away, but she is definitely more thought out, and I'm more just do it. Like, I opened my big restaurant in 2 weeks. I signed and I opened, and I remember the liquor inspector was like, "Well, when are you gonna open?" And I was like, "2 weeks." And he was like, "No, you're not." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I am." And he's like, "There's no way." And I'm like, "Watch me." And I was open in 2 weeks. And so the thing is, it's like I would just rather fail forward. Like, just at least get the rep in, right? Even if it's messy, even if it's a pain in the neck, because you learn so much when you screw up, right? You learn
Exactly.
what not to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you can look to those properties, and then also some private money partners would be beneficial for
Yeah.
somebody that has funds to invest into the property and that
Mhm.
will stay in the property, but they'll get equity and you'll take care of
Yep.
everything else.
Yeah. I mean, that's the idea, right? For people. And again, Charlotte's a growing area, so it's a win for everybody. And we could always, I mean, so that was the thought. And hopefully there's people out there who just have money and don't want to deal with it. They just want to return. They want money coming in,
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
there's plenty. So
I know. In your head,
just
you have
working.
to remember. You have to remember that that's plenty, right? Because like you have to think in the abundance of that versus the money's hard to find, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a
Mindset
different
shift and
skill.
knowing that there's trillions of dollars in the 401k that people can use to invest,
Yeah.
and they
Yep.
don't know that.
Exactly, exactly. And so, that will be the next learning lesson for me is how do I structure it? How do I find it? And again, we just did our first PML with 2 connectors, and that was awesome because I did not like the hard money was kind of a pain in the neck. I mean, I was grateful because we needed it to be able to do the deal, but it was a pain and they were in the way. We were ready to close and they weren't ready to close. And it just was a pain. And I thought, I don't really want to do that again. I mean, I will if I need to, but it just was not ideal. I'd much rather find money, find capital partners and investors or people who just want a return. That's fine and build those relationships. So it's just, again, it's like it's starting over when you're so used to being an entrepreneur and very independent and in your own business as opposed to going out and trying to bring people into your business. It's just it's a different mindset and it's a different activity that I'm not as experienced in. So hopefully I will fail forward and succeed forward quickly.
I have faith in you. You've done it so many times over the last years, so I'm pretty sure you'll be able to do it again greatly.
We'll do it. We'll do it. At least we did something. I was like, my first day with Pace was like, it was supposed to be soon. And I was like, oh gosh, I don't want to go and not be able to say I did something. That would be awful. Right. I've just been watching. I've been watching the videos. I did not want that. So at least I can say I have some war stories, right? Some messy lessons, and the same for Dealmaker going and presenting in front of all these people, to ask for money is way outside my comfort zone. And yet I'm going to do it because it's the next step for the bigger things.
You're a good person to give money to with all your success with the candy stores, with the restaurants, your flip, your tree house, I mean,
I hope so. I hope they feel it because I take it seriously. Like I feel responsible, right? So that's a good thing as opposed to a bad character. So hopefully, yes. And hopefully Dealmaker works. It's going to be fun at the very least to be able to just tell my candy story and my store and my dream about what I'm doing and why and the mission behind it. It's like Chino with like all of his work with the homeless, right? It's a little bit, you want to help him, you're rooting for him a little bit more because there's a mission behind it. It's not just, I want to buy houses, right? And it's a little bit, and this for me, this is the mission is like showing owners that they should start the plan, right? And that they need to plan and that it's not too late. Right? That you can start from scratch and do it. You, 40 years in, could make some changes and do it too. Right? And so that's kind of my drive and my purpose for that all. Plus, it would be nice to be able to cash flow $1 million a year. That'd be cool too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That'd be cool.
And it's not just for
Imagine
greed,
what you
like
could
you
do.
said. It's not just for
Yeah.
greed, like you said. It's to help people and the memories. Like Chino's
Oh
helping
yeah.
veterans.
Mhm.
We're doing sober living. You're looking to
Yeah.
co-living, and that's not just for us. That's actually to help people with affordable
Yeah.
housing.
Yep, for sure. For sure. And it's I mean, you want it's there's nothing wrong with wanting to be a millionaire and to be free financially and free in your life with time and free to do the things you want to do, whatever that is. Cause right, you get one chance going around here. At least I think one chance. And so you want to be able to do the things you want to do. You want to make the most of it and you don't want to spend it worrying about how you're going to pay for everything. It's just a miserable way to be. That's how most people are, right? But, regarding business owners, I mean, you own a business 40 years and you sacrifice and you support your community and you're like a mainstay in your community and then you have to liquidate? Like, no, sir. I don't think that's okay. I think you got to fix that and get paid for what you did. And so I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to be fun to try at the very least. Like my mission, my big Everest, I want to hear yours too, if that's okay. I'll be the
Yeah,
interviewer for a
definitely.
second. But like my big one is to help 1 million small business owners to develop and implement exit plans. That's a pretty big one.
behind
Yep.
them. You got your book
Well,
still available?
right, exactly. Right,
Good
exactly.
way to get
Like,
there.
uh-huh. I mean, that's a way, and then podcasts and talking about it and lead magnets and like meaning like calculators and education and free classes and talking at chambers and all of these things all work. They don't all have to pay me. I'd be okay with it. But the idea of raise and becoming that subject matter expert, you know, how Cody Sanchez is known for encouraging people to buy businesses, boring businesses, right? But I want to be on the other side of that, encouraging boring businesses to like plan for their exit so they can maximize instead of settle. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a big one. Okay, tell me yours. I'm ready.
Mine's for to help out 400 people with co-living, affordable housing, either
Nice.
through sober living, co-living, pad split, multiple different ways. I'm at 11 right now, and hopefully in the next couple
Wow.
months, I'll be like at 20 something,
Amazing.
little by little, but it'll increase.
And you're gonna do it all over.
Yeah. So because I'm partnering up with Adam now, so I'll have that one in
Mhm.
Tennessee. My main focus is in Houston, but I'm open to partner up with people that.
But oh, then see, you maybe Charlotte.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
All right, now I know. Well, I love that. And I think, I mean, you know what? It makes a change. And you know what I think too? I think like we set, I was telling somebody yesterday, like you set your Everest, right? But there's a story about having 9 mountains. Like I had my first mountain, which was my first business. Like I did it, right? And then be able to exit or whatever. But like the next one, like all my kids grew up and being in that town didn't matter so much to me anymore, right? So I have a different mountain. And then next mountain is this Everest, right? But then after that, like the next one is I'd like to be able to connect business owners that are selling with maybe people who were got out of jail or want to start their own business or dropouts from high school who want to start a business or learn like apprenticeship style, right? Like to come in and learn the business and own. So the owners, if they couldn't sell because it was so dependent on them, they could have some relief and have someone come and earn in to be able to help different populations and stuff. But like that's the next one. And I'm like, and being a connector for that. So no business closes, but they all sell in some way, shape, or form or share and continue on, right? Because every time a business closes, it's the death.
Right.
Right? That
A
what
lot of
was
memories go with
real,
it.
yep, memories, but also all the value they brought to the world is gone the minute they shut the doors. And I want that to continue on, right? So, like, that's the next one, and then the next one. So you're say 400, but, you know, in 2 years, it could be 10,000, or it could be something completely different. Because that's the
Yeah.
amazing part about doing this is we keep growing into it.
It's one step in the goal, yes.
Yeah.
Love
I mean,
more after that.
imagine, you know, imagine the 400 of us or however many wind up in Owners Club or whoever, right? Imagine watching this group from the beginning and where they'll be in 3 years and the magnitude of and the impact of that.
Yeah, it's so much possibilities. Some people are killing it, doing so great.
Well, and some of us, but some of them, you know what? Comparison is the thief of joy. I remind myself of this, right? When I feel like I'm not where I want to be and I'm frustrated that I haven't gotten there further or whatever. But I also remind myself too that some people when they joined this, they were already doing huge things.
Oh, yeah.
This was just another huge thing for them, right? This is not like from scratch, like, you know, I work at the car wash and I joined sub 2 and I joined owners. Like this, a lot of people are already so far ahead because they were already far further ahead. And now they just have a vehicle to do it and a methodology versus some of us are still just trying to figure out where we are, where we're living, you know, starting over or whatever. And so I think it could be a problem, at least for myself, is comparing and feeling frustrated with me. But the flip side of that is Pace mentioned this recently. It was like, you know, but think about all the people that are paving the way and learning the hard way so they can pull you along, right? It's much easier in the wake than to be
Right.
breaking through, right?
Yeah, good point.
So,
Good
but
advice.
yeah.
Where can people find you online? On your socials?
Yep. Socials are the Tracy Gunn everywhere because they were all available. So that worked out for me. Yeah. Like I have a YouTube channel. We started a podcast with Pat from Atlanta. We talk about business stuff. I have another podcast called Fix This First. And it's about helping a business owner to find one like their biggest pain point to fix that because that'll change everything, right? You know, So we meet and we talk about solutions. My partner from England, she does this for big giant corporations, right? She solves their problems. So we do this like small business. So we started with people in owners club. So if you ever want to come on, and so like it's just fun to be talking about people's, sometimes the problem is obvious when it's not yours, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like when you're not living in it, right?
When
And
you just go
so
through it, you don't see it.
well, you don't see because 'cause you're in pain and you're tired. And sometimes that new idea has to come from somebody else to be able to land. And sometimes it's just reminding you what you already know, right? So that's been really fun. So we have those. And then I just do my own where I talk about whatever software I'm doing or chat GPT or whatever I'm learning in the business, right? To help people. And, my new big dream is I want to travel the country and interview candy store owners, like the legacy ones that we talked about that are 50 years old. I want to go and interview them and like learn about their town and how they started and what they're known for and the impact on like the community and how important they are. That's like my new big like fun dream.
That's
Like I
nice
want to
one. You already
drive
got the
around.
mobile home, right?
Yep,
You're
that's what I'm saying. That's why I bought it because I was like, I want to travel and I want to do this. Like the same for my exitable business, like where I meet and do the 2-day event. I want to do that all over the country. Well, I've got a motorhome. I'm one step in the right direction. So
you have your workshop coming up, don't you?
I
When
do.
is
I
it?
have it on the 20th in Richmond, only because the person that really wanted and pushed me to do it now really wanted it. And I was like, all right, I'll come to you. We'll do it in a hotel. We'll get a conference room in the hotel. And she said, I have some friends I can invite. I'm like, okay. So I'm gonna just try to fill that room. I'm gonna manifest that. And yeah, it's on March 20th and 21st.
March
10
20th. I'm not
people.
let me see. I have one podcast before yours, so two podcasts. So I should have this out before then. So where can they sign up for that? Just hit you up on your
Yeah, hit me up on or getexitable.com is we just got our trademark in for exitable, which is not a real word if you didn't know that. Like exitable is like a made up word, but it says exactly what it is. So,
yeah.
so we just got our trademark on that. Anyway, yeah, they can just hit getexitable.com and there'll be a link on there to be able to join. And they can fly and they don't have to be from Richmond, but we picked Richmond because that's where she is. And so I'm going to work with the chamber. And it's just one of those sometimes you just got to do it. Even and she said, even if I'm the only one here, I'll pay you. And I was like, okay. I don't mind going being hands-on. I'll learn so much by being in person with her and walking through her business and where she's at and what she's done than I would in 1,000 Zoom calls.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
I'm
Definitely.
really excited about it. So,
For
and I
sure.
hope,
Group
I hope we have
networking.
10 because it would be beneficial for her to be in a room of her peers because then you learn from each other, as opposed to just me, right? So, but so far we just have the one, but that's okay. We'll just do it
Who's the
messy.
target audience? Business owners that are close to selling?
Yeah, probably retirement age, like, she's 70, she's had her business, she started it later in life, and the target also you should be profitable, you should have a profitable business that probably could sell, I'm not there's plenty of people looking to, help people who have businesses that have revenues upwards of 5 million or more, right? There's tons, but, like, we learned the stat I've known it for a little while, but Pace talked about, like, 92% of small business owners never get to 1 million in revenue. Doesn't mean their businesses aren't worthwhile, and there's nobody lining up to help them because 'cause they're harder. And so, but you should have, revenues of 4 or 500,000 because that at least proves that you have a business, right? You should have some staff, right? You should have some systems in place. You should not be a solopreneur. I mean, although we can help you figure that out, right? Outsource and all that stuff. And it's funny, I'm in another mastermind, and he made this prediction that this year they will be a billion-dollar company that has one person because of AI and everything. Like, it will happen. A solopreneur in the past has been limited, right? Because it's just one person. How much can they do? But
Right.
now a solopreneur could really do a lot. So that might change as you go forward. But really, I have a feel for retiring business owners who have worked their whole lives thinking that they're going to sell and be able to retire. And most of them will not sell, and most of them will not be able to retire. Just if most are not having revenues of 1 million, and if their best case scenario was probably 10-20% profit, like they're only worth a couple 100,000. That's not enough to live on for 20 years.
Right.
So there really is some work to be done. And the biggest thing is it starts with them not knowing that they have a problem. Most of them, they haven't started planning, so they have no idea it's an issue, right? They don't know the stats that 83% of small businesses that are listed for sale never sell. It's a huge number. I think there's a lot of work to be done, and it's a lot of educating on the front end, right? Which is okay, and just raising awareness. And we've become a country that works for people instead of working for ourselves, right?
Right.
So kind of bringing that, and I think Cody Sanchez has done so much about that, right? To
Yes.
encourage people to start thinking outside, go back to what, whether not to quote, but like to make America great, like that is what built our country was all this entrepreneurship, all of these people who came here and built businesses and made a new life for themselves, not just because they went to college, right? And so I think we've gotten way far away from that. But I think when you have your own, you understand that more, right? You understand what it takes and how hard it is, and you value it more. And you value your small businesses in your town, and that all kind of complements each other. And I think we're on a shift back to that. It would be nice.
Yeah. Shout out to Cody Sanchez, her Main Street Millionaire book,
Yeah, for real. I know I haven't read it yet. It's on my list.
and
I
talking
have a
about
feeling. Yeah. I mean, and again, grateful that we were able to get it. And there's just so much we can do, and we only have so much time every day, right?
yes. What advice do you have for somebody to get started?
Make a plan. Have a different story. Okay. So think about most of the people can relate to this. Like if you got engaged, right? Well, if you're the man, you gave her the ring, you're the woman, you have the ring, you've gotten engaged and you're so excited, you're telling everybody you're getting married. But the only time it becomes real is when you set the date. You book the hall. You've picked the day and like the day and where it is. Once you nail that down, the timer starts. And you have to plan. You have to just get moving because it's ticking. And that to me is the analogy of like, you've got to set a date. Otherwise, it's not real. You've got to set a target. You have to know what the finish line should look like or what you think it might look like. You've got to start to nail that down. And that's part of, I think, so much of why he said, like Pace has been teaching us, like, pick your Everest. Because at least it just brings it into focus in the distance. You're heading in that direction. Maybe not perfectly, right? You might get a little sidetracked along the way and get distracted, but the reality is that it's a fixed point in the distance, and everybody needs that to pull them forward in the crappy days, the bad days, and to stay on track. Most business owners do not have that. My gut would say 98% of business owners do not have that target in mind. And I don't mean only the date. I just mean where are you even going? More is not a direction, right? And so that is how I get people to start is just you gotta pick a spot in the distance, whatever it is, right? It can change even. You can change your mind, but at least in the interim, you have something you're aiming for.
Excellent. I've
Easiest
heard that
start.
multiple times about setting a date with your goal, because if you don't, it's just a dream. So think
Yep.
same thing with business about starting. Excellent. I need
Right.
to get better at that. Definitely.
We all do. I mean, and to be clear about it, like we took a class recently with one of our community members about manifesting, right? And that part of the reason the world or the universe or God hasn't given you what you want is because you don't even really know what you want. You're not clear about it, right? I want more. Well, that doesn't compute, right? It can't give you because you're not clear. If I want a purple dress that's, knee length, right, with sparkles and a V-neck, it's pretty clear, right? All of this kind of weaves together, this idea of knowing where you're going, right? And as a Christian, like thinking I want to go to heaven someday, right? Which means like
Right.
I have a fixed point someday. I don't have a date per se, but someday I have a date with destiny, right? So, but it does bear into everything I'm doing. It keeps me on track when it's easier maybe to go to work than go to church or to rush out and start doing my to-do list instead of taking time to pray in the morning or, right? That fixed point helps keep me on the road, I guess. And so, yeah, I think that translates for most people. And it's interesting because I do think that a lot of people, the only time in business, I'm talking about business owners, almost all of them have some type of plan when they start. Like they know what kind of business they're going to start, they know where they're going to open, they know when, they know how much money, they know who they're going to serve. Like they usually have that sense. And that's the clearest they ever are in their business. They figure that piece out, they change it, they tweak it, and then they very often never create another plan. And they're just living on that plan. And again, why? Who knows? We're all so smart. I mean, you are not running a business if you're not smart, right? Like you are smart if you're running a business. There's a lot to do, and there's a lot of work, and there's a lot of legalities, and a lot of nonsense, a lot of pieces. So you're smart if you're running a business. So why? Why do we forget those simple things, right? And there's a scripture that talks about go back to do what you did at first, right?
Right.
Because that's when you were clearest, right? It's the same thing, right?
Yeah. Keep
Just
it
getting
simple.
clear. Yeah. I mean, well, because when it gets complicated, it doesn't work. Simple works.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's great. Give Tracy Gunn a like, please, and subscribe to the channel to get more amazing interviews like Tracy. And we'll have her back soon. Talk more about
I
small
love it.
business loans and how to get there. And
Oh, I can tell you that I did it messily, but I'm sure that I'll have done it.
sounds great.
Thank you so much. This was amazing. Thank you so much for letting me talk so much. That's what I do.
Oh, this is information that people don't know about. You've done it. It's not somebody reading a book.
Yeah,
This is somebody
that's true.
that's lived it and not just didn't take the time, didn't learn everything, just went for it. You just the go getter,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
amazing.
I'm a master implementer. I would say that's my superpower is I'm just an implementer. I just move it forward. My husband is not that way. He's like, well, could we just play it? I'm like, nope, we're doing it. Let's go. So yeah. So
And
anyway,
it's a builder,
thank
so I just gotta
that's probably why, right? Measure twice, cut once, right? That's
exactly.
be careful. I do hear about his mistakes a lot, so I know that's a thing. Like, how did you make a mistake? He's like, I just wrote the wrong number. I'm like, okay, I forgot it by the time I got out to the saw. I'm like, oh,
Oh
okay.
yeah, math is
It
hard
has.
too. Sometimes you do a 3 instead of a 5, and it's like, what when you're doing 3/8 and 5/8?
I know. He's like, "I had to throw the thing away." I'm like, "Oh gosh." He's put like a whole door in. I shouldn't tell his stories, but like he put a door in backwards or something, the frame, and had to take the whole thing. He was like, "What the F?" And like cursing, he has a bad mouth and like all the things. He's a typical carpenter. And then he's like, "I put the damn thing." Because sometimes they don't come with directions. And he, yeah, put the whole thing in backwards. It's like, oh, eek. Okay. Right. But I mean, even after all these years, you can make a mistake. You just, you know? So, but anyway.
It's
So
okay.
thank you
You
so
learn
much.
from
This
it.
was great. I really appreciate your time. And thank you everybody for listening to me ramble on and hopefully everyone's good.
No, it's great. Thank you so much. Catch this next podcast where you can start your dreams and start to own your time the way these other guests have.